Hello, my friends. Today I'm joined by Effie Koliopoulos, the woman behind Rising Above RA on, well, pretty much all the socials, including YouTube. Effie is an advocate, writer, and the woman behind the book, Keeping It Real with RA, a wonderful collection of stories from people living with rheumatoid arthritis all over the world. Welcome, Effie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you could join us. This is Chronic Journeys, a series where I interview people who live with various types of chronic illness and basically talk about how they got to where they are and what they're doing. So you have rheumatoid arthritis. Can you please share a bit about your RA story with us?
Yeah, so I feel like I've shared this so many times, but I'm sure many people can relate though. But so I was diagnosed at 18. I had symptoms starting a few years prior to that, 15, maybe even sooner. I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic polyarticular arthritis. And I don't know if many people know this watching. If you do, then, comment below if this is something that they're comment or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, let's assume they don't. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so juvenile arthritis, there's different subcategories. And I was diagnosed with the one that can lead into adulthood, unfortunately, and it tends to mimic adult RA. So it can be aggressive in that sense. A lot of kids who do have juvenile arthritis, some subcategories of that, they tend to outgrow it. And then, as adults, they don't have it and they go into remission and whatnot. That was not my case. It actually got worse. And then I, had ups and downs, but, with medication, lifestyle changes, I've been able to manage. But yeah, there's been good days and bad days, and you just got to take that as it is and keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know that well. Like when I was diagnosed many years ago, they called it juvenile rheumatoid arthritis because basically it's the same thing that stuck around. Unwelcome guest and all of that. So you started your website Rising Above RA in 2017. What was the driving force behind creating this website, and why are you calling it Rising Above RA?
Yeah, so it was a passion project of mine. It kind of still is. I don't really keep up with it as much as I would like, but I think that goes to say with a lot of people who did the blogging stuff back then. But I actually started it when I was healing from total knee replacement surgery. So I had a lot of downtime. It was like, 6 to 12 month recovery, 6 months, but 12 months to actually kind of feel like my leg was part of my body in that sense. But yeah, I don't know. I just had kind of like a divine download, I guess, inspiration to kind of get back out there for advocacy because when I was in college, I was actually an intern and I later worked for the Arthritis Foundation Chicago chapter. So I did a lot of outreach for them back in 2008 before social media was around. And then, after I graduated college, I didn't really like what I was doing, there. Not that I didn't like what I was doing to help people, but it wasn't really for me, I felt like, and I just didn't really want anything to do with arthritis. So as I started to feel better, I was like, I just want to get out there and do different things and just like live life. Not like I wasn't living it before, but I think like when I was diagnosed at 18, I kind of had to, like my perspective and things had to change a little bit quicker than my peers. I often say like people were going to get their stuff for their dormitories and I was, practicing how to do injections. Like my priorities had to shift a little bit and I had to make lifestyle changes. And so I feel like from 18 to 2021, I was really focused on like school, work, but like also my health. And I didn't really do anything else. So I feel like after that, and I started to feel better, I didn't really want anything to do with that. So for like 7 years, I didn't really do anything with arthritis advocacy or anything. And then as I started kind of having more challenges and problems and things kind of went downhill more so than ever, honestly. And that's kind of how rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune and inflammatory arthritis work is you can feel good for a long period of time and then, be in remission or whatever, and it can come back. And so for me, it kind of came back when my medicine stopped working. I was on Enbrel. And then I went to another medication that helped for a little bit, 5 months, and then it plateaued. And then that's kind of when things kind of spiraled a little bit. And I started having issues with my knee, and there was like a whole other saga up until I had knee surgery for like 5 years. So I really just felt like connecting with people, not, and then social media was on the scene. And, to be honest, if you would ask me like 5, 10 years ago, if I would be like even talking to you, even like making collecting stories for a book or posting anything about my experience online, I would probably tell you that you're, crazy because I didn't want that's like nothing I liked doing. And I still am pretty private about my stuff. I don't really like to tell everyone about everything. But I gotten to the point where it's like, if I share something that helps someone, then, that's great, so, and also like connecting with people who had knee replacements and who had like problems that I was having really helped me heal too, more than, anything. So I really wanted to kind of give back and kind of do something to not only help myself, but help others. And so it was kind of like a healing process for me at the same time. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
No,
why I named it Rising Above RA, sorry. I didn't answer that question. I really like the symbolism of like birds and like rising above challenges. Kind of like the darkness and the light aspects of things that we go through. And so that was kind of what I was dealing with at that time. And that's why I named it that. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I can relate to that. Going back and forth between sometimes you're really in the world and really connecting to the community and to advocacy, and then every now and again you need to go off and live in an area of your life that isn't just about your health, right? So I kind of went through the same journey. Those of us who live with chronic illness often get told to stay strong. And personally, I find that kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
And you also have very decided opinions about this idea. What are your thoughts on staying strong?
Yeah. I mean, I often use the phrase keep going like I did. And I think it's kind of similar, but it doesn't really bother me as much as it used to. A lot of things kind of used to get on my nerves when people would say things, but now it's like you kind of have to pick and choose your battles because not everyone's going to understand what you're going through. And for those that do, great. For those who don't, I mean, what can you do? You can only say so much. But I feel like if people do say that, it probably comes from a good place because they don't really know what else to say. That's what I've noticed. Like sometimes people don't really know how to approach a situation if someone's not feeling well physically, chronic illness or disability or anything else of the sort. So I think sometimes that's just their way of saying like keep going or like don't give up, So I think yeah, I mean, it can be annoying if you're really going through it though, because I think how many times can you be strong each day? It's like sometimes you just want to rest. I think there was a metaphor that someone said once, like sometimes we have to keep the swords down, like the phrase that we sometimes hear in the arthritis community, arthritis warriors. A lot of people don't really like that. I used to attribute myself as an arthritis warrior, and then I kind of took that down because I didn't really want to fight with it anymore. As my therapist told me, she was talking to someone who had cancer. And sometimes there's similarities in our journeys and like the medications and the situations we face, even though it's totally different disease, right? But she was telling her her client, that she was like, it's kind of like you're dancing with it. So I feel like that's kind of what we're doing, So some days you might want to rest and not fight, not be strong, and that's okay. So I think like as long as you know that you don't want to stay strong every day, I think everyone's outside opinions shouldn't matter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ways that you stay strong? Like in the moments where you need that strength? What do you connect to?
Prayer and meditation really helps. Just having like a good self-care practice, self-awareness practice, like where like, I like take care of my body, try to work out, walk if I can, because from knee surgery, I wasn't able to like walk well. So I try to get out there and walk or do something active every day, whether that's stretch on some days if I can't, do anything else. And I think just connect with others too, whether that be in my personal life or on social media. So, yeah. I think that's kind of how I stay strong. And also humor. I can kind of be like self-deprecating sometimes. And people who don't know me may feel like that's like lack of confidence or like I'm kind of being like weird with myself, but that's just kind of how I cope. But I also just find humor in our chronic illness journeys really helpful too.
Turning back to your conversation about surgery, having knee replacements and other surgeries, and you have some in-depth experience with this. What are some of the general tips you might be able to share with others who may be facing surgery? Are there certain ways you get through it or you prepare for it?
Yeah, I don't have kids, but hopefully one day I will. But it's kind of like when, parents say like they read all these books about parenting, and then you don't really know what to expect until you have one, or even if you're a pet owner, same thing. I feel like I was kind of watching all these videos, connecting with people, and that's how I prepared myself. But I feel like you're not really prepared until you do it, and you kind of are in the thick of it, of the aftermath. It's a whole other ball game when you read about it, you talk to others, but then it's like once you get there, it's like everyone's situation is so different with healing too. So you kind of have to take what people tell you with a grain of salt and not as like fact too. But I feel like, yeah, just researching as much as you can, talking to others about the procedure that, you're going to have, if there's anyone your age specifically, because I was younger when I was only 29. Luckily though, my surgeon in my area that I picked, and I say picked because I kind of was going through a few of them when I landed on him. And the reason I picked him is because he had experience with younger patients up in, like, I'm talking about as young as 21 years old for knee and hip. So I felt like confident that he would be able to like understand my situation. He dealt with hard cases. So I feel like if you have to like go to a different state, then so be it. But as long as like it's a good doctor, who has good bedside manners and someone who's gonna be kind and compassionate. And, luckily every surgeon I've had so far has been also humorous and like lighthearted. And I love that too. I can't deal with someone who's serious. Of course they're serious, but also like they kind of joke too, So like recently I had a hand procedure and, my surgeon came in and talked to me and the nurse, and he was like joking around. And I love that because it kind of keeps you at ease. At least for me, it does. So I just feel like, try to find someone who's experienced and also on your vibe. I mean, if you can do that, that's a blessing. So.
No, and I think you're right, because it's one of the things I talk a lot about is like you may be referred to a doctor, but if you are not comfortable and you have the opportunity within your insurance and so on, you can seek out a second opinion to find somebody who's better for you. So what are some of the ways that you found doctors? You were talking about, you went through a few. What are some of the tips you can share about finding the kind of surgeon that works for you?
Yeah, so I wrote about this a little bit, but it's like kind of like regular relationships, whether that be platonic or romantic. You kind of have to see like your search for a doctor in the same way, because it is one of the most important relationships you'll ever have, because it's for your health, right? So I feel like kind of like making a pros and cons list, of course, but also like watching out for the green flags and the red flags, which can sometimes be hard to do, especially when a medical situation, because when we're not feeling well, we just need help as fast as we can get it. And, with obviously like rheumatoid arthritis and rheumatology in general, like there's already like kind of a scarcity in rheumatologists and the wait time we have to get in to see someone. And it's easier said than done to tell someone like what to do. But it's like when you don't have insurance, that takes the doctor you want to see, when you have to wait 6 months to a year to see someone, it's very difficult. And I mean, I've went through all those things too. I've had to wait 6 months to get into the people who actually did help me. And it's not to say the other doctors I had were bad, they just weren't for me, So it's kind of like you're in a relationship, you find someone's not for you, and you just have to move on. And I feel like my first doctor, I went downtown here in Chicago to see him, and he had all these awards, and he was like on the board for Arthritis Foundation. He was this and this and that, but at the end of the day, like I feel like the way he treated me did me worse, So I feel like it wasn't really a good situation for me to be in. And also like I feel like I stayed way longer than I should have in that category with him. I should have probably sought someone else. But I feel sometimes we can get comfortable with our doctors, and also we don't really know like who else to look for. And so it wasn't until I kind of like had bad experiences with my health that I kind of like was forced to kind of like see someone else. If that makes sense. And again, I'm not placing blame on any doctors. It's just like, who's for you and who's not, sometimes, whether that is like the way they communicate with you, the way they explain things, the way they understand like what you want to do with your body in terms of medications. Right. Because my rheumatologist now, like when we discuss things, and I have another doctor I work with too, they ask me like what I feel comfortable doing. If I want to modify something, they help me modify it. And it's like other doctors, they don't do that. Or they may like prescribe treatments that maybe not are too heavy duty for you, and you need something else, so it's really tricky, but I don't know if I answered the question, kind of run on a rant.
No, no, I think like your point seems to be is like make clear, do some thinking about what you yourself need from a medical situation.
Yeah.
How much decision-making power. And I'm a big fan of basically saying I make the decisions the doctors recommend, because it's my life, it's my body, and it has to be right for me, right? So, and other people might feel more comfortable just leaning on the experts, but having some clarity on what you want out of this relationship, I think is a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's important to listen to them too, and for them to listen to us too, because you know the patient has experience as well. You know,
Yeah.
that they often say like we live it, but yeah, I think we have to hear them out, because sometimes I don't know. I mean, I guess like what I'm trying to say too, like with the bad experiences I had, they didn't really explain the medications that well, and there was a lot of fear mongering back then too, like with certain like methotrexate. And it's just like, I feel like doctors, I think now more so than ever, they do explain more,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and in 2005, 2004, I mean, it was like nothing really was really out there as
Yeah.
much as there is now. Yeah. So,
Well, it was a very, I think it was a very different time in terms of healthcare dynamics, in
Yeah.
a sense that more doctors are now moving to patient-centered care, which means basically making sure that your patient is on board, understand, and that as a doctor, they understand your goals, your life, etc., so that it becomes a conversation rather than doctor's orders that you must comply with, which always makes me just itch. It's like, you're not the boss of me, right? So let's talk about the book we put together, Keeping It Real with RA. It was published about a year ago, and it's a collection of stories from people all over the world who live with rheumatoid arthritis. Please tell us about the book and the process of creating it.
Yeah. Called Keeping It Real with Arthritis, Stories from Around the World. There's about 119 stories of people of all ages, parents, healthcare workers, rheumatologists, occupational therapists wrote in. And like we were saying, building up on this conversation, I felt like all areas of my life were impacted up until the point of like 2016. You know, in my early diagnosis days, it was more like physical. It wasn't really a lot of social stuff, financial stuff at that time. But then it started kind of creeping into the social, the financial, the dating life, the emotional, mental health. So I felt like inspired to kind of create something that people could relate to, because a lot of people don't know that arthritis affects all areas of your life. They think it's just like wear and tear arthritis, which it is. And some people wrote about that type of arthritis. But then there's, you know, kind of like the other side of it, kind of like the bad, the ugly, the good of it. That's kind of in the book where people share like the positives and the negatives. But yeah, so I feel like that's kind of what inspired me, is just like having all areas of my life affected by arthritis and kind of seeing if other people felt the same. And obviously they did. And so I had people kind of pick like a theme, and obviously some themes crossed over to each other in some people's stories. And that's okay, because you can't really just have like only mental health be affected. Sometimes it's like all, you know, kind of like a cobweb. So yeah, I mean, people wrote in their experiences, and that's how I kind of collected stories. And I just kind of wrote the introduction. And yeah, I mean, I kind of have like a thing where I just have a lot of ideas, and this was one of them. And this was one of the ideas that I had while I was healing from knee surgery. The blog was one of them. And then eventually I was like, like, what if I create something kind of like a Chicken Soup of the Soul or Humans of New York, or something where people like submit things, you know, you kind of like there's books like out there like this already. I'm not like the only one, but there wasn't anything like this for arthritis. And then, you know, when I was diagnosed in the early 2000s, I mean, there was nobody like my age that I knew. I mean, it was just Instagram, Twitter, like this type of stuff wasn't really there. So I didn't really have anyone to talk to that understood. And so I felt like it would be nice to collect people of different ages. So if like there is a teenager out there, or if there is like someone in college, or there is someone who's a parent, or, you know, even a healthcare provider, because we have to listen to their stories too, because they're swamped, they're stressed. They have it, you know, difficult as well. If we can hear all perspectives, that's kind of how I envision this book to kind of take on a mission of its own, to kind of like show people like what everyone goes through and how we can like work better together to create a better future for people with arthritis.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we don't have to kind of have them face what we faced, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a fairly common, anybody who's involved in advocacy for this community kind of goes, I don't want other people to have to go through what I went through,
Yeah.
which I guess speaks to we still need some improvement out there. But
Mhm.
I agree. Like by sharing our stories, we can maybe help others have a bit of an easier time.
Yeah.
So I know firsthand how much work it is to recruit and manage submissions to a manuscript. What was your experience juggling this with the demands of your life, your chronic illness, and so on?
Yeah, it was difficult. I didn't really know if I was going to be able to accomplish it at one point, but that's kind of how it always is with creative projects. You kind of maybe hit a plateau and then you kind of push forward and it works out. But yeah, I mean, I didn't expect this to be an overnight thing anyways. I had like a time frame of 12 months with the grant I got from Healthy Voices. For those of you who don't know what Healthy Voices is, it's annual conference for advocates and advocates to come together of all different health condition areas to kind of come together for like a weekend of like networking and like workshops and how to kind of like tell your story and be a better advocate or something like that. But they also kind of give other opportunities to people. And one of them is the Healthy Voices Impact Fund. And you can apply and they pick like 11 to 12 people a year. And I pitched this idea to them because being on disability, it was going to be a little bit difficult to pay like thousands of dollars on my own outside of everything else I have to do. And just life in general to like afford this because I didn't go through a regular publisher, which is fine. I went through someone I had to pay. So, and you know, that's perfect for this project. And they did Imagine We Publishers did an amazing job and they've published other kind of books like this. So that's how I knew that, you know, they were a good fit. And so, yeah, I mean, this was a book on a budget. It was a mission project and, you know, it served its purpose. And I think it's going to serve its purpose for a long time. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and I would say if you know anyone, like either as a gift to yourself or a gift to somebody you know, the link will be down below, so you can buy the book yourself. It's pretty wonderful, and it has that whole sense of connection to community that's so important. So, what are you working on currently?
I'm working on picture books. That's what I'm focused on now and other like freelance writing projects. Some of my picture books will have themes of, you know, disability and possibly arthritis in them. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. And hopefully I'll be going for my master's in the future. So in the next year or so. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So that's what I'm focused on. But other than that, I just want to make a few announcements, like for people who may hear this when it's posted in December or so. I don't know. But yeah, we're gonna try making the book hardcover because some people wanted that. And then, you know, the price of the book was a little pricey. The ebook is not as bad, but the physical copy, which a lot of people like, and I don't blame them, was not always affordable for people. And we've, you know, done giveaways and discounts throughout the year, but we're gonna slash down the price considerably on all platforms, like permanently. So that's exciting, I think. And then we're gonna be offering other like discounts. We have merch coming out because a lot of people wanted merch for this book. And yeah, there's one other thing I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, I'm doing a Goodreads giveaway, but you have to be on Goodreads for that. And if people like mark down the book as must read or they save it on their list, then they'll be notified when it launches next month. Because I don't really control that giveaway. It's not like the ones I do on my Instagram page, Rising Above RA. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we have planned for the 1 year anniversary of the book, which is December 6th. And yeah, so that's exciting. Yeah.
And just lastly, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly active on Instagram these days. I mean, you can find me on Twitter or X. I think that's what it's called now. And then I have my YouTube channel. I haven't posted in a while, but there's a lot of content on there. If people just want to like scroll through videos. That's at RA and myself. I may change the name later on, but you'll still be able to find me. But yeah, that's kind of where you can connect with me. So I'm always open to, you know, hearing from others. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Effie,
Yeah,
for
thank
sharing
you.
your story. And
Thank you.
like I said, I will link to Effie downstairs. And if you have any questions or comments, please do leave a comment, and I'll be hovering in the down there to keep the conversation going. See you next time.
Thank you.
Okay. So